All right, hello, everybody. Welcome back. The worst intro ever. Yeah, I have become AI, I suppose. I have become a robot. My name is Jonah. As always, that hasn't changed. I'm here with my wife, Lindsay. Lindsay, how are you?
Fine. Not AI.
Not AI. Not AI yet. Right. Thanks. Thanks for fixing that. Today, we are back. This is the Sifting, Reclaiming Authenticity. We're here with episode number 71 today. And we are talking about financial stewardship. A very important topic, we feel, for a lot of people in today's world. And there certainly is not a lot of stewardship happening and not a lot of wisdom happening with people's finances. But we'll talk about that here shortly. But welcome back to everybody who is listening, or if it's your first time listening, hello. Nice to meet you, I guess. Yeah, we do, this is a podcast that me and Lindsay do. We record episodes semi-frequently. We did every other week for a long time. We're switching that up a little bit, taking more of a break in between episodes to give us time to actually prepare something that we feel like we're better equipped to talk about. And so we have had something on our mind recently, and so here to talk about it, here to go through it. But you can find us on YouTube. We are on Spotify. Our social media accounts are, if you just search for Sifting, Reclaiming Authenticity, any of those words jumbled together, you'll probably run into the social media account. So I think that is all the intro stuff. Lindsay, have we been doing anything fun lately?
Just trying to survive the rest of the winter.
Yeah, I feel like everyone almost died this winter. Like we were all dangerously close to the grave.
Being frozen to death.
Man, that was... When did we record our last episode? Was it before, like, the megastorm happened?
I think.
Mm-hmm. I think it was, too. Yeah, that thing, that rocked society as a whole, I think. Like, I can't imagine anybody, like, people might be listening to this who don't live in, like, the Cincinnati region. But, yeah, it just, like, had a devastating impact, honestly, on just about everything. I haven't seen that much snow in many, many years. It was just wild. I mean, it took me like 3 hours to shovel our driveway, and our driveway's not even long. It's just a normal sized driveway. Like,
oh, we didn't even get kicked in the rear as hard as the South did.
That's true. You're right.
And the East is getting hit again. It's just been an awful winter.
Yeah, there were reports of major interstates in the South, like I-20 in Louisiana. I know this because it's part of my job. Like I-20 in Louisiana, they had so much ice that was on their highway for days, and traffic was just stopped at one point. I think for like over 24 hours, traffic was stopped. They had to bring in like emergency food and like medical supplies and water. And we're just walking around to cars with like various, ration food and water bottles and stuff like that just to help everybody get through. And could you imagine that would be awful in so many different ways. Like,
it's been a record-breaking winter in the worst ways.
In the worst ways. But I think that every like snowfall that happens is a good opportunity to reflect, and it's a good opportunity to think about like what you learned during this, during this snow storm period, and how you'll like use your knowledge to help you get through better next time. So like, did you feel like you learned anything from this? I learned that
I don't know.
I learned that...
that I would never make it in Russia.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I learned that I need a better shovel. Yeah, I definitely need to get a better shovel. I need to use, I need to actually use salt on the driveway, because we do have an angle, and I worry about, you slipping. I don't think the girls would have a problem, but I worry about like you or me slipping and hurting ourselves on the driveway. And so it just, when you have a big snowstorm, I think that it's beneficial to look back and say, hey, like, what did I learn from this that I can help get myself through the next snowstorm? Really, I don't have any issues with snow except for driving in it. I hate driving in hazardous weather. It's like my least favorite thing ever. I despise it. I feel like I'm risking my life. Even though I've never, never mind. I won't go any further with that. I won't make everybody more depressed about snow. Hopefully, we're recording this on March 1st. So fingers crossed that I'm almost certain that the worst is behind us. It's going to be like 70 degrees later this week.
If it's not, God help us all.
Yeah. And hopefully, that was the worst snow we've had in years and years. So, hopefully, dear God, please, next winter will feel mild compared to what this has been like. So, if we have something like this again, I might just, I don't know, hibernate. You won't see me for months. It's been miserable, but spring's around the corner, so there's hope. There's hope yet for everybody. I'm a football fan, so I would be remiss to not mention congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks on winning the Super Bowl. I love that. I love their team. They just are such a cool team. They're very humble. It's very different. Like if you're a football fan, you would remember when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl in 2014, I think it was. 2013 or 2014 when they won their first Super Bowl. That was an incredibly talented team. They were amazing, but they were very loudmouth. They had a lot of strong personalities on that team. And this team is different. They're humble, they're quiet, they're hardworking, and they're just better than everybody else. They really showed out in the Super Bowl, and I was happy to see them win. I thought the game was great. Everyone was like, the game sucked, and I'm like, I thought it was great. Their defenses both were really, really on top of their game. So congrats to them. Sam Darnold is my hero now. I want a poster of Sam Darnold to put on my wall. Like I'm 12.
Yeah, that's just what you want, is to wake up in the middle of the night and at 6 foot something.
Yeah.
Man is staring at you.
Yeah, exactly.
On the wall.
That's what I want. Yeah. Sam Darnold, you're the man. You're a beast. Just couldn't be happier for Sam Darnold. He deserves it. Okay. Anything else that I might be missing?
You got your hair back to normal.
My hair is all about back to normal. But I think it was getting there anyway in the last episode. I think I needed the haircut, but last time we recorded. But I did get a haircut, and I got it the way that I wanted it. And so it is getting back to where it was. And so I think just a little bit longer on top, and I'll be good. I'm very selective over who touches my hair now. I get it now. I get why people go to the same barber over and over again. Because you want someone who you can trust, who knows your hair, and who knows what to do. So, yeah, that's been a blessing, for sure. I am grateful. I'm really grateful that it came back. I was so nervous about that. It wasn't gone. They didn't, take it to the scalp or anything. I was just scared. It was very, very short. It's never been that short before. I was just afraid. Okay. Lindsay, do you have anything else? Nothing? No more musings about the weather? Nothing? All right. Cool.
No more Midwestern musings.
No more Midwestern musings. That's true, man. Living here is a trip sometimes. Although I feel like living anywhere in America, you have pros and cons because I hear people all the time saying, "I want to move to Florida where it's warm," and I'm like, I don't think it's the paradise that you think it is. Like, yeah, you have some nice weather for sure, but
you have to select which kind of natural disaster you can
yeah,
deal with.
yeah, and it's.
Do you want tropical diseases and hurricanes or snow sometimes?
Snow sometimes, like
earthquakes,
right,
fires.
right.
Choose your poison.
So the Midwest isn't all that bad, right? Because you might have like a tornado scare every now and then, and you do have like regular snowfalls, but it's better than like in the Northeast where you have life-threatening snowfalls that are, going to completely just, dismember society, for a couple of days while everyone tries to recover. Anyway, all right, enough about that. Okay, so we're here today talking about finances, and it's just come up a lot. What?
Dave.
Yeah, thank you. I'm taking on the Dave Ramsey persona in this episode, so call the number below, and we'll tell you. You can explain our situation, and we'll tell you how financially unwise you are. No, if you've never listened to the Dave Ramsey show, there are some truly incredible calls on that show. Like, I'm not mocking anybody. I'm not putting anybody down because everybody's learning and everyone has treated their finances differently. Some people are in a situation they didn't ask for. I get that totally, but there are some unbelievable situations that people call in with. But what's cool is that he always has a hopeful approach to it. He's like, you can get out of this. It might take time. You might have to work extra, but you can get out and you can get free from whatever you're stuck in. So that's cool. But it's just we have been talking a lot about just various financial things because it's just been on our minds a lot for the past, I'd say, month or so. We have some extra things happening around our house that we're paying for. Our church is actually doing kind of a giving campaign right now. So that's been, something that's been that's a reason that's been on our mind. And then we just are seeing a lot of, people that seem to be struggling financially. And it's caused us to have a lot of discussions about, what healthy financial living looks like and what it means to actually be, approach your finances from a Christian standpoint. Like, what's a biblical way that you can take care of your money? What's a biblical way to view the money that you have? What's a biblical way to view spending and saving and investing and giving? And then how does that all work together to, make money work how it was designed? I believe that how God designed it to work. And it just, it's crazy because no matter what like our economy looks like, and no matter what, no matter how expensive something gets or something doesn't get, financial principles, I feel like they never change. And I think that if you can stick primarily to some core financial principles and some core financial ideas, I think for the most part, most people are probably going to be able to weather any kind of, expenses or inflation or whatever. And obviously that's not a one size fits all. Some people live, as wisely as they can financially, and there still isn't enough. And unfortunately, there's too much of that in our world today. We often talk about how some people, it's like they do everything right. They just don't make enough money to account for whatever situation, like living situation they're in. Maybe they have 4 kids. Maybe they have, a really expensive school degree or whatever. And there's just too much financial imbalance in our society, because I think that there are principles that should work for everybody, and I think they will work for most people, but there are some people that it's just like, it's so imbalanced, and it's like, no matter how hard some people work, no matter how hard some people try, they're still barely moving that needle along to a better, more fulfilling financial situation for themselves. And so there's just a lot that we've been musing on, and a lot that we've been discussing. And I guess for me, the core idea that I kind of keep coming back to with this is being a good steward of your finances. And what does that mean? I think the idea of stewardship is something that people don't often think of, and people don't often talk about when they talk about money. And I think that idea has a lot of implications that would change the way that we think about money, treat money, and the way that we interact with it. And so, the whole idea of stewardship, you don't need to be a genius to figure it out. It really just means taking care and wisely acting in wisdom with what you have. But before I get into that, Lindsay, do you have any just like general comments, just general overarching thoughts about people's financial lives and, what it means to live wise financially? No? Nothing? Okay. All right. That's okay. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say as we go along. So stop me if you want to say something. Okay. What does it mean to be a steward? Well, the dictionary defines it as the job of supervising or taking care of something. It's important to note that stewardship is more than something just existing. It indicates care, intentionality, and purpose. So, when you think of money, right, some of us think of money as an item that is just there. And sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't have it. Sometimes we need to use it. Sometimes we just kind of put it away. A lot of us just view money as an item that's there. And the idea of stewardship is different because it's not just something being there and kind of taking a careless approach to it. It indicates care, intentionality, and purpose, like I said. So I think that so many of us treat our money carelessly, but Scripture would instruct us otherwise. Instead of just, treating it like it's, an everyday object, what if we viewed it as something more than that? We viewed it as a gift. We viewed it as something that we would take care of, and something that we would invest in, and something that we would use to the benefit of God's kingdom and to the people around us. I think that we are to give our finances the intention and the care that the word stewardship implies. So again, it's not just carelessly letting something exist, but it implies taking care of something. I'm not just going to look at my money and say, oh, that's the thing that I have. I'm going to look at my money and say, how can I take care of that? How can I be intentional with preserving that? If we saw our money as something that was much more valuable than just an object, and I know the whole idea is like money is an object, and I understand what people mean when they say that. Obviously they're talking about money isn't everything. You can't take money with you. It's something that comes and goes, and if you base your life on it, you'll be disappointed. And I understand completely what that statement means, and sure, I would agree with it. But I also think that we can go a little too far with that and think that money's not important at all. And the reality is, it is important. You can't eat without money. You can't take care of the people that, God has put around you and He's entrusted in your care. You can't take care of those people without money. You can't have a home without money. You can't do anything that the gospel kind of calls you to do without money. You can't take care of the poor without something to give them. You can't clothe somebody else without, something to provide for them in the first place. You can't take care of the widows. You can't feed the poor. You can't do any of these things if you don't have something to give in the first place. And, obviously the scripture is implying that we don't just give them money, but that we give them, a resource. Well, you can't get a resource without money. So to imply that money is not important at all, I think is also a mistake. I think that we need to have a healthy balance in how we think about it. Is it an object? Yeah, it's a thing that we can't take with us after we die. It is something that if we base our entire life around it, we will be disappointed. But it's also something that is entrusted to us that deserves our care. And it deserves us putting an intentional purpose on it and being able to use it in a way that pleases God, in a way that's going to help us and help other people. And unfortunately, we just don't seem to think of it that way. I think an excellent example of stewardship was given at the very beginning of Scripture. Genesis, or not, I guess I'll start in Psalm. What happens at the very intro of Scripture. The world is created. God creates this earth, and He handcrafts it with, all of the intentionality that He has, and He creates it with purpose. He creates it so that everything is working together and working in a way that makes sense. There's a scripture in Psalm that says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, and the world and all who live in it." So what does that mean? I think that scripture means that God stewards the earth, His creation. And He created it as the creator, but He also began stewarding the world, right? He didn't just create it out because He was bored. It was out of a lot of intentionality, and it was out of purpose and desire. And that's the reason that everything in Genesis 1 and 2 work together in the way that it does. And what's so interesting is that you get to the end of Genesis 1, and what happens is this transfer occurs. God created the earth, and I think as creator we could call Him the original steward. And then what happens is He transfers stewardship to human beings, where He hands the earth to us, and He says, you are going to be the ones that take care of this. He tells Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. That was like the moment that's, the keys being handed off, to the company. Or I don't know. That was a bad example. I couldn't think of a good example there. But that's
the family farm.
Yeah. That's the family farm being handed down, right? So that's exactly what stewardship is, right? For humanity to steward the earth, their job was not simply to keep the earth existing. It wasn't to just make sure that it kept rotating, right? It was to care deeply for it, to invest in its health and invest in the progress. That we had this earth that was created, and our job now was to take that seed and then create something out of it, invest in it, watch it grow, take care of it, kind of devote ourselves to making sure that it was taken care of. So in the same way, stewarding our finances doesn't just mean keeping them alive, right? A lot of people have that mindset where they're like, I just got to make it to my next paycheck. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, is the popular saying. And what that is just trying to keep your finances alive, right? It's keeping them just existing, trying to make sure that it stays there. That's not what stewarding is, though. Stewarding is keeping it healthy. It's saying, I have this. What can I use it for? How can I best use what I have been given? Yes, I need to pay my bills. Yes, I need to, take care of the people around me. And all of that is great and all of that is wonderful. And I would say that doing those things is honest. I would call it a holy act, because that is living responsibly. That's living with a Christian sense of responsibility, of being able to provide, especially for the ones that are in your home, for the ones that you care for, whether it be a spouse, whether it be children. If you're a caregiver, I have someone in my life who is a caregiver, and I think a lot about what he does to provide for the person that he takes care of. And that's what stewardship and servanthood, in my opinion, looks like. We as Christians, we believe that finances are not inherently ours, but they're God's, and that we are simply entrusted with them as a gift. So a lot of people, have this idea, they have this concept that they just have to hold on to what they have, and they just need to make sure it doesn't go away. But I think the biblical way of thinking about it is, how do I take care of this? How do I use it in a way that's healthy? A lot of people need to start there. Like, a lot of people need to ask themselves if they are spending their money on the right things. And it's not to say that, like, you can't buy movie tickets or you can't buy, nice things for yourself. Or it's not saying any of that. I mean, if you have the money to do that, sure, by all means. But some people have spent so much money on, clothes, or they've spent so much money on designer shoes or whatever, or a nice car, and it's like they can't even pay for their groceries every week. They struggle to pay their rent or their mortgage, or they're 3 months behind on payments for this thing. And a lot of people, I think, just need to start asking themselves, how do I spend money? How do I spend wisely? Am I really spending this money in a way that is benefiting me, or am I just spending it because I want to look a certain way, because I need to feed a certain part of myself that's not satisfied until I get this amount or whatever? So I think that's a good place for people to start. And I guess I should put the disclaimer on all of this. I feel odd saying this, because it's not like I'm someone who has decades of experience on the earth and decades of experience handling money. I mean, I guess I have 3 decades worth of experience, but
on the earth.
Yeah.
Not handling money.
Exactly.
Unless you count, like, pocket change.
Yeah, unless you count. Yeah,
a piggy bank.
Right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. But I think that just as I have learned how to steward my money, firstly, like, I would thank my parents for giving me good examples of what this looks like. And as I get older, I've realized that not everybody has that, and not everybody was given a good example. And I think, there are people probably listening to this that would say, I didn't have parents that spent money wisely. I have, my parents never talked to me about saving money. They never told me how to wisely use my money. And unfortunately, a lot of people have had to learn some really harsh and difficult lessons because of that. And so I think I just want to see people use money in a wiser way. And whether you were given, a good example of that or not, I think that like it's never too late to start having your money work for you in a way that is actually beneficial for you. And it takes people sometimes a while to get there. And as you get older, you start to see that, and you start to see how, I ask myself all the time, how does someone have an idea that, a 10 to 15% interest rate is not a problem? And, how does someone see that paying $400,000 for a piece of junk house is probably not a good financial idea? And there are just some people that don't know the difference. Like some people don't know at all. And, I think that's why this kind of discussion is needed. I think that's why we need to talk about it more, and why more people need to view their finances as something to care for and not something to just haphazardly use. So anyway, do you have anything on that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess. When it comes to finances, like, we do have to start from a place of, like, nothing is really fair in finances, and we recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in general, people are not paid enough for what the economy is. And in saying that we need to, like, be really wise to make the money that we do have work for us, we're not saying that the system is fair.
Sure, yeah.
We're not saying that people aren't being raked over the coals by electric and water and taxes. What we're saying is that, like, when we don't necessarily have any control over those things, you have to have the wisdom to make what you do have work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. And everybody's starting from, like, a different base when it comes to finances. Like, the hilarity of, like, a billionaire's kid starting a business and acting like they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps to, like, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And just, like, the audacity that has compared to somebody who actually starts a business from nothing. Like, we recognize everyone is starting from a different position.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not trying to say that, like, we're some kind of experts in finance.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're starting on a different base from a lot of people. But, that doesn't mean that we don't want to share, like, any wisdom that we might have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. You said that a lot better than I kind of fumbled my way to saying. So thank you for that. So big idea, and we kind of talked a little bit about, saving money and spending money just now. I feel like we touched on that in a decent way. Another thing that is large within the Christian world is giving, right? So we wisely spend, we wisely save, and then we wisely give as well. And we're going to talk about wisdom here in just a couple of minutes, because that's the overarching word. It's like the overarching topic of this whole discussion that is missing, ultimately. People are in bad financial straits because they lack wisdom. Not all the time. Some people are truly and honestly victims of I guess you would call it financial injustice. However, a lot of people are in the situations that they're in because they just lack the financial wisdom to know any better. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But, the idea of giving is huge in the Christian world, if you didn't know. You could probably step foot in the church one time and you would know that. Because churches talk about it all the time, and they get a bad rap for it, even though that giving and generosity is an absolutely core part of what it means to be Christian. But anyway, we've like heard these stats kind of thrown out recently, and I forget the number exactly, but the vast majority of Christians, and this is true, have never given financially to their local church or a local ministry. Like, I think it's at least 50%, I think. It might be 40 to 50%. I can't remember the number, like I said, exactly, but me and Lindsay were both heard this. And it's like 40 to 50% of Christians have never given to their local church before. Or I guess like I said, you could say a local ministry. And that's just so deeply unfortunate to me. A lot of us, we sit around and debate whether tithing is biblical or not. And I think I'm kind of over that discussion. It seems biblical to me, In the New Testament, they were giving up everything. I mean, they gave up all of their possessions. They gave all their money. And so it's just funny when people are like, well, yeah, tithing is Old Testament. We don't have to do that anymore. I'm like, have you read the New Testament? Like, have you looked at Acts chapter 2? Go read the end of Acts chapter 2. Like,
would you rather give 96% or 10%?
Exactly. Like, you want to give 96% of your money away? Like, you want to give your home away? Like, you want to give all your possessions up? I mean, that's the New Testament. I mean, that's what the church was doing in the book of Acts. So, like, tithing is not that. Anyway, a lot of us debate whether tithing is a biblical idea or not. And you can have that discussion, but the reality is that most people haven't given $1 to the church at any point. And it's like most people who debate that tithing is wrong have never given. They don't give regularly. And so tithing can be debated, but generosity cannot. What does generosity mean? It means doing something generously. That's above, above just like a baseline kind of idea. So if you give generously, it doesn't mean you just gave some scraps. It means you gave, kind of a first fruit offering almost. And so one of our problems I think that we have is that we hoard our money, not knowing that there's freedom in giving. Jesus mentions in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "Give and it will be given unto you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together, running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." That's in Luke 6:38. It's an entire expose on character. Luke chapter 6 is. I guess the whole Sermon on the Mount is that way too. It is a speech given. It's a sermon preached about character, what it means to be Christian, how you act Christian, how you think in a Christian way. And he's just correcting a lot of the bad beliefs that a lot of people were holding that were very anti-Christian. He's like, I've come to change all of this. I've come to make it all clear about how you are to live, about how you're to act, how you're to interact, how you're to use the things that you have. And part of that includes, money. And he says, give, and it will be given unto you, implying that there is freedom actually in giving, and that in God's kingdom, anything that is given, anything that you give will be given back to you. He says there's freedom in giving, and that we are creatures who aren't created just to hoard an excess, but to give out of love to others. So I think a healthy view of finances starts by understanding that the money we have is God's, and then knowing the money we have is not all meant to be just for us. Part of that money that we have is to be given. You know, that 10% tithe, I think, is important because it represents the first fruit of your finances, right? You are bringing 10% to God's kingdom, and that to me is a small way to offer thankfulness and appreciation, and also give into the kingdom and give to a purpose that is greater than just you, and give in a way that's going to benefit, you know, your church and what your church does and the missions that your church does. It's important. And so, you know, I think part of our problem is that, you know, some of us, you know, we don't give anything at all. We just hoard everything. We just keep it all to ourselves. And we wonder why, like, we feel sick. Not knowing that if you give something, you'd be surprised how much freedom there is in that. And like we're going to talk again in a minute about wisdom. That doesn't mean giving everything away. It doesn't mean giving away more than you realistically can afford to give. But like, give something, you know, if it's not 10%, if that is just like not a viable option, well, it's like, can you give 2%? No, can you give 3%? What if we encouraged people more often to just start giving 1% and hopefully work their way up to the point where they can get 10%? You know, it's like there's some people, 10% of their income is really significant. And, you know, that number is intimidating. And I think there needs to be like a better entryway for people, you know, like, can you start with 1 or 2%? Can you start with 3 to 5%? You know, just give that, just start giving that, give something, you know, just don't hoard everything to yourself, even if it's just a little bit that you can afford to do. There's a lot of freedom in giving. All right, you have anything on that?
I think a lot of times when giving is discussed in church, like, if you've been in church for any amount of time, you'd know the verse, like, given and it will be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And people are like, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I guess it's just people don't recognize that, like, it really works that way. Mm-hmm. It, like, genuinely worked that way for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've had times when, you know, we were, like, looking for a new home church, so we weren't giving, and, like, I don't know, I was, like, extremely uncomfortable, because I felt that need, that I'm like, I need to give. We need to give
to someone.
Our tithe. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, from our personal standpoint, I thought it was pretty cool that, I mean, a few years ago, we were giving in, like, you know, an end of the year, like, above and beyond offering, like, whatever you can afford to give, was the idea. And the amount that we, like, settled on and gave to the church, like, that was our, like, above and beyond gift. And that amount that we had decided on, I will say that, like, things happened with our finances after that, when we've been faithful in giving for a long time. And a few months later, our just regular tithe from what we were making was more than we were able to give in that above and beyond gift. So, like, preachers aren't just saying that to you because they want your money. Like, it genuinely will come back to you. I mean, if you were God and you're giving somebody, I mean, it's his money, and, like, nothing's coming back to, like, kingdom work, you're not going to want to give them any more.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's true. Like, you know, tithing and giving and, you know, giving what you can doesn't mean that, like, you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow. You know, some people have framed it that way, and it's just so wrong. Like, if you are willing to give, you might be surprised at, like, what comes back to you. And again, it's not going to be like, you're not going to win the lottery the next day. You might. But, like, you would be surprised just how there seems to be, like you said, during that time, there was a little bump up that we just, like, we didn't even ask for, and we didn't even, you know, pursue. It's not like we were trying to get that or anything. We gave because we wanted to. And that's another thing, you know, don't give just to get something. You know, give because you want to. Give because it means something to you. You know, another thing you said was, you know, we went through a time where we were not tithing. And I think we had a good reason for not doing it. You know, we wanted to
attached to a church.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that, like, we were giving somewhere that we actually cared about and something that we actually would, you know, we felt invested in. So we waited until we were at that point. But yeah, it felt weird because at that point you're holding on to all your money, and something in you is saying, because you've given before, and something in you is saying, this is wrong for me to hold on to this. Mine. Yeah, this is not right for me to have this, right? Like, it is only right that I give. And it felt uncomfortable to hoard everything for yourself. And you're like, I need to give. You know, I need to make sure that, you know, I'm not hoarding this, because there's people that need this. You know, there's people that could use this. There's a church that, you know, needs that finances. Needs that finances. There's a church that needs that. And so, yeah, that's really well said. Okay. And the last point I have here is just an overarching idea about all of this, whether it's spending, saving, giving, and that's wisdom. All of that being said, that we just talked about, there's a level of wisdom that's necessary when it comes to living smart financially. Again, a lot of people live in financial poverty just because they don't have the wisdom to live any other way. And so, you know, having a faith mindset towards finances or giving doesn't negate having wisdom also. You know, some people will encourage the idea of giving even more, you know, above your tithe, right? Above your 10%. Some people encourage, you know, trying to push that to be more, whether it's 20, 30, 40. I'm pretty sure the CEO of JCPenney gave away 90% of his earnings. That's incredible. Not everybody can do that, for sure. He's also a CEO, so he can afford to give 90% of his money away. That's important context. But yeah.
CEOs all gave away 10% of their money, the world probably wouldn't be hungry anymore. That's
true. That's very true. If only they tithed. So there's this idea that, like, you know, you should really push the boundary for giving. And I would be cautious with that idea, because I think it's great to have faith behind your finances, and to believe that God can do more, to believe that, you can give more. I think that's wonderful. It's amazing. I'm not putting that down at all. But I am saying that there needs to be a balance of wisdom in that. Some people probably should not give above and beyond, a basic 10% or whatever they've decided on is right for them. And there's just a lot of, wisdom that I think is missing. I don't know. Do you agree with that idea? It's like, I'm all for like encouraging people to try to give more, but at some point you also have to say like, okay, at what point is it realistic for me to just like, I need to make sure that like I'm able to stay in my house also, and I'm able to pay for the things I need to pay for, and I also need to make sure I'm saving money, because that's the right thing to do also, and I need to make sure that like I'm investing in a retirement fund because that's also a wise thing for me to do, and so there, yeah.
If you have to decide between tithing 10% and getting your baby formula, like, the church doesn't want that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's counteractive to what the money is for.
Mm-hmm. I think I've even heard, like, on Dave Ramsey's program before.
Right. The church shouldn't want that money.
Yeah.
If they're a good church.
That's right. Definitely. I think I've even heard on Dave Ramsey's program before, people have said, like that they want to give to like a church or a local or community organization or something like that. And they're like deeply, deeply in debt, and they have bad financial problems. And I've heard him encourage people not to give before. He's like, I would not give if I were you. He's like, I would make it a goal instead to get to a place where you are available to give. And that's a good goal to have. That's something you can strive for. He's like, if you're in deep financial strain, like I probably wouldn't do it. And it's just interesting because that's so contrary to what you hear a lot in churches, where people are like, you can't afford not to give. And normally I agree with that 100%. I think that you should, but like, it just needs to be balanced with wisdom. If you're in like if you're in a bad financial state, it's like, maybe it's best for you to, if you want to give, maybe not 10%, maybe just do very, very small, so you can work your way out of whatever you're in, and then get to a place where you're free to give. And I believe with all my heart that God will honor that prayer, and He will honor that request. Anybody who wants to give, I think that He will bless in order for them to give, because giving is a heart issue, right? It's not a resource issue as much as it is a heart issue. And so there's a few verses here that I had. The book of Proverbs, it talks about wisdom all the time. And it calls wisdom in chapter 4, verse 7, it calls wisdom the principal thing. That's a KJV translation. And I love that. The principal thing. Meaning that it is like it's the overarching presence, right? Like I mentioned earlier. It's the thing that drives everything else that you do, is wisdom. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes 7:12. I love this too. It says, wisdom preserves those who have it. Meaning that if you will make wisdom something that you pursue, if you make it something that tries to drive your life, then it will preserve you. It's designed. I feel like wisdom is an idea that is designed by God for us to follow for our prosperity. You can't prosper as a Christian. You can't prosper individually or as a family or in a business if you don't act with wisdom. Like, it is it's the common denominator for all success, is that you cannot have success unless you follow wisdom and you pursue wisdom, right? So tithing is right, but you also have to judge your giving amount by what you realistically have. We already talked about that. And enjoying the money you have isn't wrong, but excess in debt is unwise. The Proverbs also says in chapter 22 that the borrower is slave to the lender. So if you're in debt, whether it's credit card debt, medical debt, I know that some people can't do anything about that. You know, if you have medical debt, you have it. I mean, I know that millions of people have that. School debt, again, millions of people have that. Credit cards, I already said that. Car loans, whatever. I mean, the Bible says that if you are in debt, you are a slave to the person you owe money to. And that's not an indictment, but it's an encouragement that you shouldn't want to be a slave to the person that you owe money to. And you should work to get yourself out of that, so that you are able to be free. So, again, being in a bad financial position is not an indictment. Some people are drowning in medical bills, and you might not be able to do anything about it. Well, you might be able to just make like small incremental progress towards, a better financial situation. And, I believe that people who will do that God will honor that, and He will definitely come in and be that presence, that rescuer to get you out of that. And it's crazy because there are multiple studies that have mentioned this, way too many to count, that have shown that most Americans don't have finances to cover a $400 emergency. Like the majority of people, if they have something come up that's $400, they don't have the money to pay for that. That's just insane to me. Like, and I'm not saying that because I know any better. I'm saying that because I feel like we have learned in our life the importance of saving. And we've learned the importance of being prepared for something to come up that, we weren't prepared for. And a lot of people just don't think that way. Again, some people are living paycheck to paycheck and they are trying to save, but they can't afford to use money for anything else except what they need. Some people are in a position to save, but they don't. They spend every dollar that they get, right? It comes in and it goes out. And it's just unwise. It's so deeply unwise because things will happen in life that, you need to be prepared for. And I believe that when you save money, that, eventually you will get to a point where you're able to pay for something that you might need, or an emergency that happens or whatever. And to me, that is the grace and the provision of God, right? That you have what you need to pay for an unexpected expense. However, that comes with a condition, and that condition is wisdom. You have to have the financial wisdom to, save money. And you have to have the financial wisdom to make sure that you are prepared if something were to happen. And I believe that when you do that, I think there's a blessing attached to that. I really do. That the provision of God will come in and carry you through that storm, whatever it might be. And it might be a lot, but it's just a principle that it feels obvious, to a lot of people, that, oh, of course you should save money. Of course you should be wise to not spend everything that you make. But, other people, they don't know this. And some people were raised where every dollar that they got, whether it's for a birthday or an allowance, every dollar that they got, they were allowed to spend it. And what that does is it creates an adult who thinks, because they might have never seen their parents live a different way. And so it creates an adult that thinks that, oh, the natural thing to do is to spend every dollar that I make. And
money in equals money out.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I feel like the wise thing to do as a parent this is like varying in all sorts of different directions, I know. But I think the wise thing to do as a parent would be to look at your kid and say, okay, you got $20 out of birthday money, but you're not spending $20. You can spend 15, and then the other 5 you have to keep. You have to put that in a piggy bank or put that away somewhere. That's not torturing your kid. That's teaching your kid that, like, you know, not everything you make is meant to be spent. And so, I've heard a good rule before. I heard this from somebody and I thought it was awesome. And it's like the 10-10-10 rule. At least I call it that. It's not exactly the most concise name I know. And that's give 10%, save 10%, and invest 10%. And that might be like a retirement account or, you know, whatever. And I think that, like, that's just so genius to me, because that really is a great path forward. If you can take away, or if you can section off 30% of your money, and you can do 10% giving, 10% saving, 10% investing, and then try to live on 70%, I think for most people, like, that's a real path forward that will allow you to succeed and will allow you to live in a way that, you know, in a way that you need to. Do you have anything, Lindsay? Just about wisdom?
I mean, I think the lack of wisdom that we see is just like financial priorities being like so out of whack. Like, and I mean, a lot of that is like pushed on us by society at this point. Like, you can't go onto a social media platform without like somebody telling you all of these things that you need. Mm-hmm. And the reality of the situation is that, like, that person was probably like gifted that product, or they bought it and they're gonna write it off as a tax, like as a business expense. Mm-hmm. They're not like, that's a business expense for them, not just an expense like it would be for you. Or like, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, you can't watch a streaming service without seeing a commercial for something that's targeted at you every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just, like, everybody at their core knows what, like, not having financial wisdom looks like. It's the person who doesn't have money for food, but just got a brand new F-150 that'll never haul a single thing in its life.
Yeah, yeah.
Or is cruising on credit. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, where that priority list is just upside down. Whereas, you know, for Christians, it should be, I don't know, this in my mind is like food, housing, giving, saving, like clothing yourself. Mm. Entertainment is way down here.
Yeah.
But so many people prioritize entertainment and luxury items over feeding themselves and having a decent place to live and saving and putting into retirement. And it's just like, I think at our core, we know what a lack of wisdom with your finances looks like. Because, I mean, if you've listened to Dave Ramsey at all, one of the first things he asks about is always like, what's your car payment? Mm-hmm. And so many people are like, oh, $800. It's like, You don't need that 2026
Mm-hmm.
if you can't put food on the table. Like,
The car is to get you from
Yeah.
point A to point B. That's what it exists for.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we all know what it looks like, but we either just don't care enough to try to get ourselves in a better position, or we've never been taught that priority stack, or like I said, society is just pressuring us so much in these other directions that we feel inadequate. Like, I don't know. I feel a little embarrassed when I'm driving my little 2015 car around that's banged up on the side and makes stupid noises. But I'm like, I don't need a new car. So, like,
Right.
you know, it's just, we know what it looks like, but there are just various reasons people choose to not listen to that wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. They're going crazy, by the way. I think the mailman must be here.
It's Sunday.
He's not here. No, that would not be the mailman.
Sometimes he's here on Sundays.
Maybe it's the neighbor. I don't know. I guess we'll figure it out. All right. So we'll wrap it up here. Yeah, the girls you can probably hear Nutmeg howling right now. They're going crazy. But, yeah, just, I guess in closing. Oh my gosh, wow. That's crazy out there. We just both think that there's a lot of wisdom that is missing, and a lot of wisdom that we can pursue, that we can have, that would make us better off financially. And so we hope that, hearing us talk about this today maybe encourages you to think about how you're spending money or saving money, or how you're giving, how you're using wisdom. And, our hope is just is to help people. Our hope is to maybe encourage people to live a different way, or to give people hope about, if you're in a bad financial situation now, maybe it wasn't your fault at all. Maybe it was your fault. And no matter what, I honestly believe that God does not want us living bound to financial circumstances. I believe He wants us to be free, and I believe He wants us to live in financial freedom. And so no matter what kind of situation that I think you're in right now, I think the first answer is just reaching out to the Lord, asking for wisdom. When you ask for wisdom, you will receive it. Solomon was the smartest man in the world, and he could have asked for anything, and he asked for wisdom. And that is just a shining example of, the kind of impact it can have in your life. So I think you reach out to the Lord, you ask Him for wisdom, and you would be surprised how He, can respond in your life, and how He can really show you wisdom about how to live, in a wise place financially. Okay. Anything else? All right.
Get it together.
Yeah, that's right. Get it together. You spend all your money on...
Jonah's the nice guy, and I'm the get it together.
That's right. You dropped the bomb, and I softened the blow, I guess. All right. Let's pray, and we will be out of here. So, Lord, we come to You today, and we just thank You for this great discussion that we've been able to have. Such a helpful topic, and such an important one. So many people are living paycheck to paycheck. They live in a very bad financial place. And, Lord, whether or not they caused it, maybe it was something that happened to them, something they didn't ask for, something that was dropped in their lap. We just pray that You would help all of us to live with wisdom, financial wisdom, and to not be in debt, to not be slaves to lenders, to live free, to live with an attitude of giving, and to just be wise and to seek your counsel and believe what you say and trust and know that you have a good financial plan for every one of us. And in Jesus' name we pray, amen. Guys, I'm really sorry for just our dogs going crazy a couple minutes ago. They rarely get that worked up. So I don't know who was out there.
Something was delivered. I don't know what it was.
Oh, it was my book, probably.
Oh, okay.
I got myself a translation of the Odyssey, and so I'm going to be reading that to prepare myself for the new Christopher Nolan film. Let's go, Nolan. Christopher Nolan is a god. That's a joke. It's an inside joke. Okay, I don't think I have anything else. You have anything? Mm-mm. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Hope you learned something or took something away that was useful. Let us know, in the comments if something really resonated with you, if you agree, if you disagree. We'd love to hear it. Definitely share it with somebody who you think could benefit from it. Give it a like, subscribe, all of that jazz. So that's about it. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.